Iowa and offensive linemen. Iowa and tight ends, of course, but Iowa and wide receivers, we rarely put those two together. Certainly that's not the national narrative, but Tim Lester is trying to make a change and took strides in 2025 in regards to Iowa's wide receiver core. We will check out the early returns for 2026 as we approach spring practice here in 4 or 5 weeks. Corey Brada right next to me, of course, from the Hawkeye of the Storm. It's basketball season, men's and women's big games this week. Join Corey after the games, and we will give you further details. This is Hawkeyes football right here at the Voice of College Football every Tuesday at 4 Central Time. Leave those comments and questions there in the chat. We appreciate your super chat contributions as well. Corey, how you doing today?
I'm doing okay. Yeah. Nice weather the last week here in Iowa. So it's supposed to get cooler here in the next couple of days, but it's, when you get in the 60s in February, you'll take that.
That's what I was about to ask you, because I'm headed to Connecticut in 2 days. And when you, in whether it be Iowa, Connecticut, I know that they're nowhere close to each other. That's not what I'm insinuating. Like, I don't know geography, but basically the entire map north of like Georgia was in a deep freeze for whatever it was, 10 days, 2 weeks, something like that. And therefore we felt the effects in Florida with high 40s, low 50s kind of weather at its worst. But I was just out for a walk, and it felt like practically summertime. Not summertime here, but summertime somewhere, maybe in Minnesota or somewhere, although it does get really hot there. But, it had so I just figured without checking that it's probably been warmer elsewhere.
Yeah, somebody told me we're supposed to maybe get some snow Thursday, though. So, it's felt over the last week at least that, we're in spring now. But the reality is it's way too early for that. So, my guess is this is kind of a weird time for us to get that warm up. But, I'm not some meteorologist or climatologist. But my guess is we will have another month of really cold weather. It'd be great if we just had one more spell and then we hit March and it's 50s and 60s the rest of the way, but that's very unlikely to happen. But basketball's going, as you mentioned at the beginning. We got men's basketball tonight, big game against top 10 Nebraska team that came out of nowhere with Fred Hoiberg this year. And there'll be lots of boos from Iowa fans because Price Sanford transferred to Big Red in the offseason. And of course, his brother graduated from Iowa. Price has been all Big Ten level at Nebraska this year. It's a guy that, Ben McCollum really wanted. So that should make for an interesting atmosphere. I just hope that they can get as many people in there because I'm guessing that Nebraska fans will travel. When I looked on Saturday at the tickets remaining, there were a lot of seats open. And it didn't help when you sell out. I mean, Saturday was the first sellout since 2000. I want to say 2000. I don't know. It's been a couple of years. But, they were out of the game. They were down double digits at halftime, and it was a 27-point lead at one point in that second half for Purdue. It just leaves a bad taste in your mouth. Doesn't mean that Iowa basketball is not back. Doesn't mean that this is still first year under a brand new head coach with a totally different roster, and they're still projected to make the field of 68. So there's lots of positivity, but when you start winning, it changes expectations, and you sometimes can kind of put the cart in front of the horse. And Saturday was disappointing because of all the fans there and the student body, but Carver will be like that again. Maybe not tonight, but boy, it'd be a big help if the men's team could knock off a top 10 Nebraska program.
It could now be argued that Nebraska is a basketball school.
Sure.
It could be argued that Nebraska is a volleyball school. It could be argued that Nebraska is even a baseball school, but what Nebraska is not is a football school, at least on the field.
They're a good wrestling program as well. So, no, 100%. Yeah, they football is. I've been told, Nebraska people have told me they have one of the best bowling programs in the country.
Yes.
You've heard this as well?
I have.
So, hey, do you like bowling? I mean, I haven't bowled in a long time, but I don't mind bowling.
Yeah, I don't mind bowling either. I enjoyed it. Probably high school into college was my peak bowling run.
Yeah.
If there was such a thing. I did go last weekend, though.
Oh.
I went bowling last weekend for the first time in
You were with a woman, weren't you?
I was with a lady. We went bowling. She wanted to go bowling, so we went bowling.
I figured you didn't go by yourself.
Do you want? No, I didn't go bowling by myself. I went with my kids and my son's wife last summer when I was in Ohio, and my kids embarrassed me on the miniature golf course the day before, where I had never lost to them ever. But now, granted, they were typically like 11 or 12 years old when I was taking them to task. So
Yeah.
it didn't even cross my mind that I would lose in miniature golf because I fashioned myself as a decent miniature golf player and they both destroyed me. And then bowling the next day, I barely squeaked out, but we were talking about just horrendous scores. And I didn't win by a whole lot last weekend either.
Well, miniature golf I haven't done in a while either, but bowling I really haven't done in a while. But no, Nebraska's in a weird place right now where their basketball programs are pretty good. Women's basketball's a little bit down this year, but they're still projected to make the field. The women, actually, the Iowa women just beat them yesterday. It was a weird time for a game on Fox at 11 a.m. on President's Day, but Iowa took advantage of a very underwhelming crowd during the middle of a weekday in Lincoln and won that game. They'll play at Purdue. It's another team that's projected on the bubble in the women's field, so it'll be nice to see if Iowa can go to West Lafayette and on a short turnaround and knock off the Boilers. They're in a really good place. They're going to make the field, but a really big game for the men. And as far as football, we're about a little over a month out from spring practice starting and some really key position battles beginning. I know guys are working hard in the weight room and kind of getting prepped for that, but it's going to be here before you know it. Always really hits it. I remember when we first started this show, I remember having a conversation because I think Iowa had just lost in the NCAA tournament. And I remember saying to you, like, well, all right, let's talk spring football. Like, it's sort of just, you just go from, I know you're not locked into basketball, but for Iowa fans, if you're locked into all the sports, okay, you're out of March Madness. Well, spring football's starting now. So it all kind of works in that regard. And I know there's going to be some people that don't care about spring ball, but spring ball is important. I've heard, I remember an interesting debate on your channel, on the Nebraska channel, about spring ball. I'll let people go back and try to find out. That was a great debate. If you know, I guess, but it is important. And there will be some big battles there with some transfers as well as some freshmen.
As opposed to the seasons, and I know it's been a long time for Iowa men's basketball, but obviously with the women's team advancing to the national championship game in back-to-back years and having the kind of success where if you can't take it all in as a sports fan, then I'm thinking that you obviously watch the basketball and lock into that until the very end. And then you can always catch up with spring football, catch the spring game, and catch up on all the information, the news and notes that come out. So that's the better situation for a fan of any.
But let's be honest, there's
team.
really not a whole, like, just from a general standpoint, a common fan, common person standpoint, there's really nothing for fans to follow until the open practice at the end of spring in April. Like, besides just us talking about it, which is, I hope, riveting and interesting for people. It's not like we're getting interviews we get some press media coverage and press conferences and stuff, but in general, like, those are closed practices and you don't hear a ton out of spring ball. So I saw this like a week or two ago. Somebody in the Iowa media had to get on the scoop first. They got the New Jersey numbers for the incoming players. So we have those numbers, and I don't know if they've updated the weights and measurements. If they'll do that before spring or if they wait till after spring. A timeline on that, I guess I don't really know. But this is, I guess, if you're just talking about personnel, new personnel, this is probably, if I want to be hyperbolic here a little bit, it might be the biggest spring in the history of Iowa football because, in a sense, it's their biggest transfer portal haul, start to finish that they've ever had. Right? Small sample size because the portal era hasn't lasted all that long. But they got a lot of guys who have a chance to come in as second or third year guys and play. And then they got some freshmen, obviously, as always, true freshmen, more enrolling early with Iowa now than usual. So there should be more battles this spring to follow for sure.
The diehards are here for sure. But I am surprised they're all our old buddy Tim Prangley stopping by. He must have nothing to do today, but USC guy Tim Prangley, good to see you, Mr. 300. Yes, Mr. 200 a few times. I think I've thrown a 200 about 3 times in my life,
Okay.
and probably for the last time based on recent efforts. 100 is a stretch for me these days.
You
It
you put
truly
the
is.
you put the gutters up? Is that what you put the
Yes.
yeah.
I'm about to go to that degree for sure. Well, Corey, you brought up jersey number changes, and Reese Vanderzee, who projects, I believe, is the number one receiver, will wear number 2 from 15. So before we really launch into 2026, evaluation from you on the wide receiver room in 2025, did you believe that there was significant elevation of play? Because to me, there was. I saw more dynamic plays, contested catches on a fairly regular basis than I remember over the last 5 or 6 years.
Yes. I mean, in short, yes. I mean, it's hard because I mean, without really going back and breaking down tape, I mean, it'd be a better question for Tim, but they had such better quarterback play. Like, say what you want about Mark, even toward the beginning of the season, even when Mark Gronowski was struggling early, he was better than Deacon Hill ever was. With all due respect to the former, uh, where did he end up? Not incarnate word, but Utah Tech quarterback. The improvement there, and then also that these guys are just everybody, the offensive line, quarterback, receivers, tailbacks. They're learning the system a lot better in year 2. So yes, I don't know what I'm hesitant to say. Oh yeah, definitely. I would guess the numbers are better as a whole. You might be able to tell me I'm wrong on that, but I'm guessing they had better numbers with Jacob Gill and, with we really didn't see Jarrett Bowie, KJ Parker, Seth Anderson was very limited, but with Gill and with Sam Phillips and even a little of Caden Weegan and Dayton Howard, they had a couple of downfield plays to people like Howard and Vanderzee. Remember, Vanderzee missed the first half of the season. That's the other thing we got to remember. But yeah, I mean, 261 yards this past year for Sam Phillips, 278 for Gill, 151 for Weegan. And that's pretty much it. You got Howard with 91. You got Parker with 18. Who am I missing in there? That's basically it. Seth Anderson had 54. But compare it to the year prior, Mark.
Yeah.
And now, I mean, DJ Vanami did have 434 yards through the air as a tight end. Gronowski ran for 545 yards. So, again, you're weighing like they didn't have any mobility in 2024. So it's not like, you know what I'm saying? Like that's 545 yards of offense that was taken up by Gronowski running the ball because he could, as opposed to putting the ball up in potential harm's way, but also a potential catch down the field. So I don't want to just we've had these debates before. I don't want to just take the totals and use those exclusively to measure the progression of that room. I think the room got better. The difference what we saw was Jacob Gill was a senior, limited. He's not the fastest. He was a good, solid possession receiver. Had a couple of drops, but in general, he was really good, great leader for that room. Sam Phillips comes in, and a little underwhelming for me. I thought he'd be better. That's he's the type of a guy that I look at as an example of someone. It's like, well, 261 was second on the team, receivers in receiving yards, but with the level of production he had, albeit at a lower level FCS school, the point is Iowa's bringing in other guys from lower level FCS schools. They're, nobody's the same, but the difference now is you have guys that have multiple years of eligibility, and you're bringing in more than one. You're not just bringing in Seth Anderson like they did a few years ago. We're bringing in Sam Phillips like they did last year. This year they're bringing in Evan James, they're bringing in the kid from Rio Grande, and they're bringing in Lance Beagley from SMU. So you have 3 new guys there. Plus, you have your younger guys like Apollo Payne, Terrence Smith that maybe can develop. DeAndre Smith is a freshman. Xavier Stinson is a freshman. That's a lot of bodies. And, with Lester at the helm, receivers can play early. So I think it's going to be, here's my bold prediction. This may sound crazy to some who, I'm not going numbers. Don't. If you think I'm going to go numbers, I'm not going numbers here.
Okay.
My bold prediction.
Bold prediction, everyone. Listen up. Let's clip this.
My bold prediction for the Iowa receiver room is that, and whatever this ends up looking like, but I believe competition will be heavier, better, more productive as a whole in that room this year than last year. The reason why that's such a big statement to make is because we did go into the year last year like, wow, like they have Seth Anderson, who has been here a couple of years. They got a Sam Phillips kid who's got a lot of production coming in from college at Chattanooga. They got Caden Weegan, who just had won the Jet Award and now can finally develop as a receiver, plus Bowie, plus Howard, plus Vanderzee, who was coming off, kind of a breakout early start of his freshman campaign. But I actually think they'll have better competition this year because, like I said, they're bringing in these guys, James and what's his face, whose name escapes me, the Rio Grande Valley kid, Tony Diaz. They're bringing in those kids who have already produced. Those are like two Sam Phillips in one, right? They're going to battle against one another. Plus Vanderzee, health pending, he'll be a huge factor in this. Dayton Howard, KJ Parker. And Jared Bowie, assume he comes back. I mean, he's not indicated he's not. He just dealt with tons of soft tissue issues, never entered the portal during this past cycle. So I think they will have better competition, and with Lester getting his own freshman in there this year, okay, with Xavier Stinson and DeAndre Smith, I have no question either one of those guys could end up being a year one production guy. I think that in general, like battle and production competition last year was a little underwhelming. And I think it was made up for in some regards by the really good rush offense from Mark Gronowski, really good offensive line play, and the really good play from DJ Vanami. By the way, they also get Ostringa back at tight end. I know we're talking about receiver, but as far as the passing game is concerned, they're going to have I really thought there was a chance that they would lose somebody in the portal at tight end. And here we are, portal window's closed. They haven't. Everybody's coming back besides Hayden Large. They're getting Ortworth back for an extra medical year. They get Vanami back, who could have entered the portal and gotten paid. They're getting Ostringa, Ortworth, Vanami, plus they get Michael Burt back, who's played. So they're going to be, and then a couple of really young guys who are former 4-star kids.
Iowa Hawkeyes Live is presented by FanDuel right here at the Voice of College Football. You can count on us, meaning Corey and myself, every Tuesday at 4 Central Time. Please like and subscribe. It's an easy thing to do. Please like and subscribe, and please do that every time you check out Corey's work on From the Hawkeye at the Storm, whether that be videos or post-game analysis for men's and women's basketball. Just like and subscribe and do all those good things. We've got Amazon links on both channels. If you use those, you help build and grow the channels. This is where I am useless to you, Corey. On any other show that I do, and the zillions that I've given up, I would generally be able to say, okay, this was the wide receiver core last year, and I watched Iowa play all the meaningful games, didn't watch UMass, etc. But, I watched the 8 or 9 games a year. And they're bringing in this guy from Auburn, he caught 42 balls, and they're bringing in this guy from Oklahoma State, he caught 23 passes, and I watched him play, and I can measure the stats even if I didn't see him play a lot, and then I can make some kind of comparison. I'm not saying that these guys aren't good players. I'm just saying I can't really give you much in regards to anything. I am curious to know the last time, and I know this is not an incoming guy, but the last time Iowa had a receiver the size of Dayton Howard at 6'5".
Yeah, how tall was Marvin McNutt? Huh. I mean, he'd be the only guy that I can really think of. Jacob Hillier was probably 6'3", but really wasn't a downfield threat like Howard has proven to be. And, Vanderzee's not far behind. What is Vanderzee, like 6'3", 6'4"? He's a big kid as well. So they do have size. You'd love size and speed as a combo. I think Diaz, James clearly have size. In fact, I just cut a video on Evan James here last week, Mark. He's an intriguing one, and I know you got too many things on your plate. You're entertaining the ladies, and you're bowling, and you're doing all these things. I would encourage you to go look up some Furman tape. Like, go back and watch. So Furman actually played Clemson. That'd be a good example of a game that you maybe wouldn't bore your eyes out watching. And Evan James had a touchdown against Clemson where he just beat a guy. And the thing about Evan James, I'll start with him. He's a $170. He's 5'11", 170. I mean, he is skinny. I mean, I'm heavier than Evan James, and I'm not much taller. So, like that. How much weight can he put on, before the season starts, and how does that affect his play? Everybody has a playing weight. I guess my fear would be, as a novice, right? I'm not an expert on receiver play, but a guy like an Evan James, is there a concern if you're Tim Lester, John Budmeyer, Kirk Ferentz, and the staff, that you recruit and offer a kid who's been playing exceptionally well in high school and a year at Division I football, whose playing weight has been 170? Because the reality is, at least what I believe to be true, I don't think he can come play in the Big Ten at 170. I think he's going to be asked to do too much in this offense. I could be wrong, but that just seems incredibly light. So then the next question is, okay, if he puts on 10 pounds, if he puts on 15 pounds, if he puts on 20 pounds, what does that do to his play? I mean, is it too heavy for him? Can he be Evan James the same Evan James he was at 170? That's the type of question I guess they can't really answer. But he was wanted by some high major schools. Michigan State had a visit, offered him. Ole Miss offered. Pitt offered. West Virginia. So he offers to play basically every Power 5 conference. Different school at every Power 5, Power 4 conference. And he's a bit of people want to call him a gadget guy. I've been hesitant to use the term Swiss Army knife. It feels like the last two Swiss Army knives have both left the program, one being Terrell Washington this past season, who was going back between receiver and tailback and then lost his position at tailback to just, Nate McNeil and the depth Iowa had there. And then Tyrone Tracy Jr., who was a receiver at Iowa. Granted, it was in the Brian Ferentz offense. He ends up going to Purdue, becoming a great running back. And, oh, by the way, he's a starter at tailback in the NFL. Unbelievable. So I don't want to use the term Swiss Army knife yet, because Iowa in the last 10 years has not really used quote unquote Swiss Army knife talent very well, but he is the type of guy they'll send in motion. He's going to be someone who's going to probably get some carries out of the backfield. I think he could be a special teams threat. We'll see what the new special teams coordinator does. Who he's got returning punts and kicks. Those are specialized skills, right? But I also think, based on the tape, he looks like he can be a downfield threat. Again, novice take. You tell me what you think, Mark. But if a guy's 170, unless he's got an unbelievable center of gravity and incredible quickness and incredible route running ability, I worry at 170 that he's going to get knocked off his spot a lot.
Two guys come to mind. One that we could make a comparison, although you would have never seen this guy play, Gerald McNeil, who was nicknamed the Ice Cube, because I'm trying to think, that was a playoff of, you had the refrigerator, you had somebody else that was larger, but he was a little tiny guy that played in the NFL, but he was just lightning quick. Like he weighed like 160. He was like 5'7", 160. I was going to ask how tall Rondale Moore was, but he was pretty big. He had decent size.
Rondale Moore, let's see. This says that Rondale Moore is 181 in the league. So he was 5'7". I mean, this Evan James, that's why I say center of gravity. I mean, Rondale Moore is 5'7". You say that's a disadvantage, but if you're 5'7", 170, isn't that almost better than 5'11", 170? Because
yes,
you're probably built a little bit tougher, a little bit stockier.
Sure. Depending on how you're used. If you're 5'7", you're not lining up wide and running certain routes. You're not the best of targets running an out route, difficult passes to throw down the seam, those sorts of things. You're either taking the top off the defense if you have that kind of speed, or you're running tunnel screens and underneath stuff. A lot, as you mentioned, a lot of little pitch passes and pop passes in the backfield and that sort of thing. You're not going to be a featured. he's not going to catch. Well, he's at Iowa. He's not going to catch 100 passes anywhere, but he's going to be used in a particular way where they can't necessarily make it obvious that he's in the game. We're going to get him the ball. He's going to have to learn to block. Not
So
that he.
I mean, you're bringing up Jared McNeil, a guy who played, 40 years ago, but I just looked him up, and it's like, well, from a weight and height standpoint, he's the better comp. He was 5'7", 145.
Oh, okay.
145. That is nuts.
Yeah, he was tiny.
But again, this actually says, I'm sorry, 5'7". What did I say? 5'11"? No, 5'7", 145. So that is tiny. But again, what about 5'11"? I could ask. You want me to ask ChatGPT?
To make a comparison or find the smallest successful receivers ever, college football?
Yeah. Anybody want to take a guess at anybody in the chat? I'm going to say examples of successful college or NFL receivers, approximately 5'11" and 170 pounds.
Eric Metcalf was a running back at Texas, converted to wide receiver a couple of years into the league with the Falcons, who caught a zillion passes. And yeah, he was a little guy.
Let's see. Several successful receivers. Devontae Smith, 6 foot 170. Is he really that small? Devontae Smith?
He's pretty good.
170. Yeah, this says that he's Eagles 6 foot 170. There's a good comp, Mark. I mean, he's playing NFL football right now at 6 foot 170. See, chat came through for us. Deshaun Jackson, freak, right? I was going to bring him up. He was 5'10", 175. Marquise Brown, wasn't he Ravens? 5'9", 170. John Brown, former Pitt State graduate turned Cardinal, 5'11", 178. So there are guys that play.
Percy Harvin.
Say that again.
Percy Harvin. How about I just lost his name.
Let me give you a couple others before we look this up. Tank Dell, 5'10", 165, playing in the league. Xavier Worthy, 5'11", 165. Jordan Addison, 6 foot 175. So that's actually more than I would have thought.
How about Tyreek Hill?
He's tiny.
How about Dexter McCluster? Remember him?
Oh, sure. Tyreek Hill. This says he's 5'10". There's no way Tyreek Hill is 5'10". He's listed at 185, though. So he's got a little bit more weight, but I don't think he's 5'10". Dexter McCluster. Wasn't he Ole Miss?
Ole Miss. Very good.
Yeah.
Kansas City Chiefs.
Let's see. Dexter McCluster, 5'8", 172. Again, shorter, but closer on weight. And then who was the other guy? Percy Harvin. That might be a good one, actually, because I don't think he was that small, that short. 5'11", 184. So he had a little bit more weight.
Here's a guy that did not turn out to be anywhere close to the player that those guys were, but he was supposed to be, and he was a decent college player at Ohio State. Dontrell Wilson.
Wilson
played. Yeah, you remember him?
Let me look him up here. I do remember the name. Dontrell.
About 2012, 13.
I think Chad is a little overwhelmed with everything I'm asking. 5'10", 200. He actually had better weight. So, and Jimmy wants to know if any of those guys could block. Well, and that's my question. Like in the Iowa system, is it different? How much different is it we hear about Iowa being a more, obviously, he's running a form of the Shanahan offense. How different is it in the Iowa system based, as opposed to some of the systems that these guys we just rattled off came from?
Well, that was one of my early points that Jimmy just made. You don't want it to be obvious that this guy's getting the ball because he's on the field, because otherwise he can't block. No, he has to be able to have a well-rounded game to a certain extent. And
those guys, we're naming guys, with all due respect to the guys we just named, and Tim brings up Wes Welker. Wes Welker, I just looked him up. He was 185, 5'9", 185. So he had
Julian
better,
Edelman. Thicker.
Yeah, again, Edelman, I don't think, I'll look up Julian Edelman. What about Cole Beasley? We're just naming small guys. Julian Edelman is 198. Cole Beasley was 170. Actually, that's a pretty good one. He was 5'8", but he was 174. I guess my thing about this is some of the guys that were the best comps, Deshaun Jackson, Devontae Smith, Hollywood Brown, these are freaks. These guys are freaks. Devontae Smith, didn't he win a Heisman?
Yes. Caught like 140 passes.
Yeah, it's like, so can it be done? Sure. But these are the types of things, and I hope to get Tim Lester on a off-season show this year. Those are the types of questions I have.
But the expectation for this young man is not to reach the heights of any of the guys that we mentioned.
I know, but I'm saying they have something else about them. Without doing a full break, you could do a breakdown probably on the spot on Smith and what Jackson was in college and Hollywood Brown. But like, if you don't have those intangibles that set you apart, those guys aren't getting to the Heisman Trophy ceremony because they're 5'11", 170, right? Like, there's other things, whether it be speed, hands, all these different IQ. So does Evan James have all those other things? I don't know. My guess is, in general, maybe not always, but guys like Devontae Smith, yeah, that's their ideal playing weight, but they are as successful as they are in spite of their, weight, not because of it. Like, there's lots of guys who are 5'11" in the league. He's not separating himself from other receivers because he's 5'11". And if anything, 170 would normally be a disadvantage, I would think. So I just don't know with Evan James, what type of, I'll tell you this. Here's some numbers for you. True freshman last year at Furman. So he's got 3 years of eligibility. Difference there again. Tony Diaz, same thing. Evan James. They're not like Sam Phillips in that they just have 1 year left. He was a true freshman and put up really, really impressive numbers at the FCS level. 65 receptions, 796 receiving yards, Mark. Missed 3 games due to injury. Also had 7 carries for 72 yards and a touchdown. He was FCS freshman All-American, 12.2 yards per catch. He set the Furman record for freshman receiving yards, receiving touchdowns, receptions per game, and was the second highest in the FCS in, I believe, receiving touchdowns. So, I'm just those things I just rattled off to you, those numbers. He was on track for potentially having 1,000-yard true freshman season. So, again, I don't know. Does it translate? Maybe, maybe not. But it's like, I can see. I've said this a million times now, but I can see the tactical approach that Lester and this staff has taken to the portal, especially on offense with skill guys, especially at receiver. We're going to go after guys who have lots of time left, but have shown tremendous flash. Now, we can't go get guys who have shown tremendous flash in their true freshman seasons who did it at, Ohio State or even at Pitt or at Syracuse, because those guys are the highest regarded guys on the portal market, right? But a guy like Evan James, who's like incredible true freshman numbers, doing it at Furman, hey, we can compete with Ole Miss, Michigan State, Pitt, West Virginia. And maybe we hit a diamond in the rough or two. And as I've said before, we haven't really seen it transpire yet, but Lester's got a great history of getting guys who were no-name high school recruits and making them undersized NFL receivers, right? So, whether you're talking about Sky Moore, Dwayne Eskridge, the kid that ended up transferring up to Michigan State, I always forget his name, had a great year there and then went to play for Green Bay. Somebody will tell me in the chat. He's another Western Michigan guy who got his start with Tim Lester and really emerged and then transferred to East Lansing. So, like, all of those guys. Jaden Reed, thank you. There's 3 guys right there, and none of those guys are bigger than 5'10". Tim said to me last year at Media Day, we want a combination of size, speed, great hands. But the reality is those are even Devontae Smith doesn't have the size. I mean, those are like Calvin Johnson, Andre Johnson. Who are some other examples? DeAndre Hopkins. I mean, let's just go after the best receiver. It's hard to find those guys. I think Alabama's had a couple of them here of late, but I am really optimistic about the guys at receiver. It still needs to be proven before I'm totally bought in.
And another component to this that I think that they're able to do, and maybe this is a goal of Tim Lester, and maybe I'm just overreacting to the 6'5" of Dayton Howard, but somebody else is like 6'3", another one of these receivers. I think maybe KJ Parker is six
Oh,
three that I saw,
Vanderzee.
where he might be looking for, maybe they've gotten to a point where it's not just like, let's just try to get some guys that can catch and that are decent, but let's have a true, you know, jump ball guy and a true burner and a true this and a true slot guy and a true gadget guy, and have a well-rounded from body types and speed types and ability to work in space and do all those things, have a well-rounded wide receiver core.
Yeah, I think you're thinking of probably Vanderzee. He's 6'4". Parker's on the smaller. He's like 5'10". But yeah, they do have a couple of those prototypical X guys. They have some tweeners like Jarrett Bowie. Terrence Smith is a year older. He's a guy, maybe you're thinking of him. He's 6'3". He's headed into his second year.
Yeah, it wasn't Vanderzee.
Yeah, we're not.
I
We have,
know what his size.
and Beagley is the kid from SMU. He was an interesting one, right? I haven't even cut a video on Lance Beagley, but I was like, when he entered the portal, to be quite frank, I was like, why is Iowa pursuing him? Like, why? But it wasn't just Iowa. There was a number of high major schools that offered him, but he walked on at SMU and didn't do anything. Like, didn't do anything in games. He had offers out of high school. I'm looking at his 247 page. He had offers from Appalachian State. No, I'm sorry. That was a walk-on offer. He had offers from Army, Navy, San Diego, Air Force. So, like, I got to do some real digging. I know he was a good all-around athlete in high school. He grew up in the New Braunfels, Texas area, was outside the top 2,000 nationally in his class, was a track and field basketball athlete. And, I'm guessing they have some reason to believe. I mean, he high jumped in high school. I'm guessing he's got some really good speed, but I was going to try to find there were some crazy, I don't want to say crazy, but crazy given the fact that he's never done anything, crazy offers that he got. Let me see if I can pull this up, Mark. What'd you have for lunch today? You want to share that with everybody?
Yeah, my eating habits are very sporadic. So for today, I had like a couple handfuls of cashews. I think that's about all I've eaten today.
Okay, it looks like he held offers. Beagley reportedly held offers from Arizona State, Texas, Rio Grande Valley. I mean, just the fact that Arizona State and Iowa offered makes me think, what am I missing? He's never played in a game, Mark. So how do you do that? Great question for Tim Lester, right? How do you do that? How do you determine that this guy, who, oh, by the way, wasn't even a scholarship guy at SMU, has never played in a game, you're going to compete with another Power 4 program to bring him in? And as far as I'm aware, he's on scholarship, I think. Let me confirm that, because somebody will probably jump on me if I don't. Let's see. Is he on scholarship? I believe he is. I don't know. Maybe somebody will correct me on that. I've not had a conversation with Lance Beagley, but yeah, what's the process for Iowa? Even if they were to bring him in as a walk-on, where does the value stem from with a random guy that's never played at SMU? It's not like he was a walk-on at Ohio State. Now, hey, good example. I think it was probably more. I would think it was probably more LeVar Woods than Kelton Copeland or Brian Ferentz, but I don't know that. Iowa brought in Charlie Jones, who was a walk-on at Buffalo, and he turned into an NFL. I mean, he's in the NFL right now. He was a no-name. So it does happen. It is possible, but I'd like to know what the process behind that is. Jimmy thinks he's a preferred walk-on. I would hope so, but I don't know that.
You can't mention Charlie Jones without getting me to smirk, because I just think back to Iowa losing Charlie Jones to an in-division rival, and I'm not telling anyone as Iowa fans what you don't already know, but I'm still thinking about watching him on a Thursday night against Penn State and thinking he's catching more passes right now than he's ever caught in his life at this level. He's playing one of the 10 best teams in the country. He's having his way and texting you, and then texting you the next Saturday because they went to Syracuse and he was catching like 14 passes. He was just putting up these ridiculous numbers. And I'm like, he's caught more passes in 2 weeks than he would have ever caught at Iowa. This is crazy.
I am seeing multiple people report that he's coming to Iowa as a walk-on, so that's good.
Yeah.
Lance Spiegel is apparently not going to be on scholarship, but no, to your point, I don't really know if that matters. We have these new roster number limitations. Spots are spots now, right? I mean, you have very little room. You can't just add as many walk-ons as you want. So in some regards, who you offer as a walk-on is important as well. But no, I mean, and Charlie Jones, let's not forget, he was transferring into the gym, the Brom offense. I mean, you went from, black to white, right? From Brian Ferentz's pass offense to Jeff Brom. I say Jeff Brom's offense. Could you imagine the contrast in styles between those two offensive coaches, if you want to call Brian Ferentz an offensive coach? I don't really think that he is. But yeah. So Lance Spiegel, Evan James, I have not cut a video yet on Tony Diaz. Jimmy in the chat says that he thinks Tony Diaz had some connection to Lance Spiegel. So hopefully get a chance to chat with some of these guys before spring ball actually starts. And then the other guy they added was freshman. I think I mentioned his name, but would have been DeAndre Smith and Xavier Stinson. Eli Robbins is a walk-on from Norwalk that I think he had offers from at least either Army or Navy, an actual offer. Chose to walk on to Iowa as a home state kid. So, but like I said, I think in general, my prediction for this room, it'll be better competition than ever, because it's year 2 and it's year 3, and I lose track. Year 3 in this system. Time has flown by, Mark. Feels like just yesterday we were talking about the road to 25 points per game. I had some people that really were resentful because remember I had that little Brian Ferentz logo up in the corner of my post games.
Yeah.
That was the little points per game tracker. And the arrow kept going down every post game show because the average was going down. And they just really resented that, Mark.
Score some points.
Sure.
And that even included the defense.
Yes.
Zach Heine is here to take your comments and questions on Thursday nights, 7 Eastern, 6 Central, Iowa Primetime Live. And again, it is a big week for the men's and women's basketball teams.
Yeah, tonight, 8 p.m. Central Time. It'll be a Big Ten Network. Here's a huge game on Peacock tonight as well. Number 1 in the country, Michigan, taking on a top 10 Purdue team that just beat Iowa earlier. That game is starting in about 30 minutes, I believe, over on Peacock. But yeah, Iowa, Nebraska, it's going to be a fun environment. I hope Iowa play. I think they will. It's a quick turnaround from that beatdown at the hands of the Boilers on Saturday. I just don't think they're going to continue. They've lost 2 in a row now. I think Ben McCollum's too good of a coach. I think Sturts is too good of a leader. I think they'll bounce back and at least play a close game with Nebraska. They may lose, but I think they'll at least play a close game with Nebraska. And based on every metric that I've seen, Iowa is one quality win away from basically guaranteeing their spot in the NCAA tournament. Now, if they lose out, with the exception being like Penn State, they may not make it, right? I don't think that's likely. They play Nebraska twice. They play Michigan. They play Ohio State at home. And they play, who am I missing? I'm missing somebody in there. Penn State on the road. And I think I'm missing one more. How many? But they have to basically win, I think, one of those really good quality opponents against one of those teams to ensure a spot. And If they don't, then we may be sweating on Selection Sunday. But tonight's an opportunity to basically punch your ticket. If they win tonight, take care of business against Penn State. I think you could probably even lose to Ohio State at home if you can win this game against a quad one opponent.
The fine folks at FanDuel tab the Hawkeyes as a 1.5-point favorite. Over under on the score at 139.5. How do those numbers hit you?
139.5.
So it's basically going to be 70 to 69.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard, man. It's hard to predict what Ben McCollum teams are going to do as far as score is concerned because they have one of the most efficient offenses in the country, Mark, but they use a ton of shot clock. And their defensive numbers normally are really good. They were really good through like mid-January, and they've not been good since mid-January. So, I have too much confidence in Ben McCollum to think that will continue. By the way, the opponent I was missing was they play at Wisconsin on Sunday. So that's another top 25 game. That one's on the road. Again, you win one of these, I think you're fine. But, 139. And what was the spread?
1.5.
Wow. So after Iowa gets blown out by Purdue, they're a 1.5-point underdog to Nebraska. So that tells you, I mean, the people that do this for a living, not me, but the people that do this for a living and track these spreads, that tells you that they don't really think Nebraska's any favor here. And I hope that's the case. It's going to be a late tip. Like I said, I think there's going to be a lot of red in that arena. I think I'm not a big proponent to booing people, but I will say, like, the only time I've ever booed somebody was when Rajon Rondo returned to American Airlines Center in Dallas after that miserable stint during the Rick Carlisle era, when Rajon Rondo basically quit on his team. He returned to Dallas, and I was there for, I think it was Mavs and Kings. I think Rajon was playing for Sacramento at the time, and we booed the living daylights out of Rajon Rondo. And I had no problem with that. I think it was deserved. You're not going to follow him to his car, and but with Price, hey, his brother graduated, played a full career at Iowa, Mark, and yes, their head coach got fired, but he was recruited by Iowa. He's from Des Moines, was re-recruited by Iowa to stay at Iowa, probably would have started in Ben McCollum's system. He chose to go to Lincoln and play for one of Iowa's biggest rivals in the same league with a long career in front of him. To me, that's worthy of plenty of boos, and I don't fault anybody for doing that. Now, let's keep it in check, understand that, there are limits, and I think in general Iowa fans that recognize that, but that will create a good hostile environment tonight for Iowa.
Who was Iowa's biggest basketball rival on the men's side?
Who is it or who was it?
Who is it or was it at any point since you've been watching?
Well, I mean, you have all the rivals that you have in football, right? I mean, I would say, I still think it's the Cyhawk game, which Iowa State has owned. I don't know, you won't watch basketball, but they just knocked off number 2 Houston last night. Came back from double digits down. Iowa State's number 5 in the country right now. They just beat Kansas at home on Saturday. Came back 2 days later and beat number 2 Kelvin Sampson's Houston Cougars team in a 10-point comeback. That's an amazing program right now under TJ Otzelberger, formerly under Steve Prohm, and then before that it was Fred Hoiberg. So I would say Cyhawk. It was a great game in Hilton this year. After that, Nebraska hasn't been good until this year, right? Minnesota, that's always a fun game, but it's not like Wisconsin's always been a great, especially under Fran McCaffrey. They played a lot of tough games, and Bo Ryan had Wisconsin ready to go every single night. So I'd probably say Wisconsin.
Well, the reason I ask that is at the height of Iowa basketball, at whatever point the biggest rivalry was at its best, you would not expect the Iowa faithful to be booing the other team.
I mean, booing the other team. I'm talking about, when I say booing, I'm talking about when a particular player gets announced in the starting lineup. It's going to be, like, I think they always boo. The students always boo when somebody, but they're going to be booing vehemently. And when I believe when he gets the ball, I believe every time he gets the ball, they should be booing. That's what I mean when I talk about booing Rajon Rondo. Every time he got the ball, it was boo every time. And it was fun. It was fun to, but no, that's what I'm talking about when I talk about booing. And by the way, one other rivalry I shouldn't forget, and this really got born, not born, but it's a border rivalry that's not a technical rivalry in any sport. Iowa, Illinois, because Illinois has been a really, really solid program. And they've had some serious battles with Iowa in the last 10 years. And they've kind of played a similar brand when Fran was here. And so I would say Illinois would kind of be maybe the underrated rival.
And no, I don't watch college basketball anymore. Have not for a long time. But in the last, I would say, 2 weeks, I have watched 6 or 7 old NFL games, like start to finish, like 1980s Vikings, Browns, couple Super Bowls start to finish. Yeah, just picking off like 1980s games, just sitting there watching them, having a good old time.
Do that. I'll do that with old Iowa games. I don't do that with, and I mean, when I say old, I'm not going back to the 80s. I'm just saying, not for me.
Sure.
I can't. I have a hard time relating to guys that I wasn't even alive to watch.
Sure.
As I say that, and I've got Don Patterson and Gary Close on my show, but yeah, the guys, those guys' expertise and history is great. But no, I'll do that even going back into the early 2000s. But that's about as far back as I go. Were you watching college basketball 2005, 2006 era?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so do you remember guys like Adam Haluska, Greg Bruner, Eric Hansen, Jeff Horner?
I remember Horner and Bruner. Yeah, I remember those names.
Doug Thomas.
I'm sure I watched them all play considerably. I was watching college basketball every day.
Here's a name you'll remember: Reggie Evans.
Sure.
Rebounding phenom.
Yeah.
Played in Iowa.
I'm going to guess his numbers was like 31. Is he number 31?
I know he had a long career with the Sixers, and I think he played in some other, is it that 3-on-3 league or whatever that is, after his NBA career finished. But talk about a guy who probably made a lot of money in the league just because he had an unbelievable, I mean, he could score and defend, but boy, he was just an unbelievable rebounder.
We are presented by FanDuel here at the Voice of College Football. Please like and subscribe. Do the same over at Corey's channel. Use the Amazon link either here or at Corey's channel to help support. Before we wrap it up, let me ask you this quickly concerning a lot of talk around college football during the offseason concerning the Big Ten proposal to go to a 24-team playoff, that the Big Ten, Tony Petitti in particular, pushing a 24-team format. Iowa would generally make that field 80% of the time or something in that range. So is that something that you, whether you want to speak for the fans or just for yourself personally, would enjoy, would say, let's bring it on because we want to make the playoffs most of the time? Or would you feel like it was just like you were kind of lost in this sea of round after round after round? Like, was it really special to make the playoffs and lose even the second game?
I saw that report out there, and I haven't, dove into it, but my knee-jerk reaction to the report is, yeah, who, what are we doing? That's not even, those are like, if I run the numbers, but if the odds were 80% that you get in 80% of the time as an Iowa, how many Big Ten teams would that be every year?
The Big Ten would probably get 7 teams in.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I'm comparing it to like, what percentage of the NFC makes the playoffs? I mean, you have
it is now 7 of 16.
So those are pretty close. Those numbers, like 7, we're talking like 7 or 8 of the Big Ten of an 18-team league. So I guess from that perspective, okay. The problem with it is the NFL and the NBA and the MLB, they are not based upon recruiting and NIL and all these things. You just brought up Iowa as an example because Iowa is traditionally upper 2 tiers of the Big Ten. In the NBA, a team that's a bottom feeder gets a high draft pick and has an opportunity to build because they were so bad. That doesn't happen in college basketball, college football. So I just don't know. First of all, on the surface, to me, it sounds like too many teams. And to me, on the surface, that's where I start saying, yes, it takes away from the quality and the impact of the regular season, right? I don't agree with people that say expanding it to 4 to 8 or even to 16, it takes away. I think those are numbers we can deal with. 24, you get above 16, it gets ridiculous. So I don't know what the Big Ten's incentive on recommending that, what Tony Petit's incentive on recommending that is, but that seems extreme for a sport where usually you have the same bottom feeder teams most years. So you're going to be looking at a 2014 playoff that looks almost the same every year, with a few exceptions. And so that does take away. I mean, right now you're looking at a 12-team playoff that almost every year is going to include Ohio State, is going to include Alabama, Georgia. Maybe not every year, but most years. But those are very few, and it doesn't take much. One slip up here early in the season for all of a sudden the chances for an Ohio State go way down. Doesn't mean they won't make it still, but they're impacted. I don't know if I'm making sense explaining that, but to me it just makes it a whole lot less interesting during the regular season. I hate being that guy to say that.
No, I completely agree, and just think it's ludicrous that we've gone from extreme to extreme. Just a few years ago, 2023, you had to be an elite of the elite. You had to be one of the 4 best teams in the country. If you went 10-2, forget it. 11-2, forget it. 2 losses never made the playoff. So we go from this extreme of Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, Clemson, LSU, whoever else, but a handful of teams made the playoffs for 11 seasons. The amount of appearances and wins was in such a small collection of teams. And then we get to this comfortable level of, allow teams to be able to lose a game, lose 2 games, but still you have to have an exceptional season, a really strong season. And now we're going to take it to this place where, and I, like you, and correct me if I'm wrong, always argued against the expansion to 12 or 14 means that there can be meaningless games. Yeah, it's possible 11-0 versus 11-0 isn't that big a deal. Ohio State and Indiana played a Big Ten championship game that, in a sense, didn't matter. One was going to be number 1, the other number 2, or they just flipped. But the rating on the game was still crazy. But that was very few. We then brought a lot of other games and made them meaningful.
Yep.
For the 1 or 2 games that became non-meaningful, there were dozens that became, okay, we got 2 7-2 teams. This is now an extremely meaningful game, where before it was just, this is a nice game, it's a decent game, but neither one of these teams is making the playoffs, to where we're going to take it to, if Iowa and Nebraska show up 8-3 for their final game of the season, well, they're both in the playoffs. Does it really matter that one's going to be a 22 seed and somebody's going to be a 14 seed? Does that really matter?
Right. Yeah,
they're going to have all sorts of games like that.
There gets to a point where you increase value for more than you decrease value for it, but then it starts going back the other way.
Yeah.
So, and that's where I think somewhere in between, I think 12 and 16, 16 at the max.
The only thing that this increases is revenue. This has to be simply a revenue grab. There is no other reason to do it.
Then again, money runs everything in this sport, in this world. So if that's what it is, then that's what will happen, and it'll just make the sport worse.
Corey, we will see you next time on Wednesday night, correct? Or no, tonight.
Tonight. Well, we'll be on tonight about 10 p.m. Central Time after Iowa, Nebraska.
Everyone catch Corey after the big basketball game with the Hawkeyes hosting Nebraska, and we will see you back here next Tuesday, 4 Central.